That's fine. So I can't complain. Oh, I can give you. So this is my first page. I didn't print it out this time. And then from here, she has an order of meetings, what to include. So that's what I need. I will send a line template and then right.
And are they going to want according protocols and care, or is this different sort of power?
You know, it's up to you whether you want to say, do you want
And Chris comes and watches over us and gives us a kick in the ass.
just to let me
Okay.
You can do
I
that.
go 2 days a week just so I can do that.
Okay.
I think I can talk to you.
Yeah.
I think I might also have to include the one, a lot
This time it's just on the one, but good evening. This was the February 20th, 2024 University Head City Council meeting. I want to thank everybody for coming. If everybody will please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, I'm sorry, we'll have the roll call first. Sorry for that. Ms. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King, Mrs. Sachs.
Here.
Mr. Cooney.
Here.
Mrs. Wise.
Here.
Mr. Rock.
Here.
Ms. Marshall. Ms. Weiser. Here.
Is there a motion to excuse Councilman King and Councilwoman Marshall?
So I'll second.
Ms. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Sachs.
Aye.
Mr. Cooney.
Aye.
Mrs. Wise.
Aye.
Mr. Rock.
Aye.
Ms. Weiser.
Now will everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're now to the reading and disposal of the journal. I want to thank Ms. Thomas for the detailed minutes. Are there any corrections or additions to that? Is there a motion to approve the minutes? I will make the motion. Is there a second? Second. Ms. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Okay, are there any additions or removals from the agenda? Ms. Weiser?
Vice Mayor, at the Building and Housing Committee meeting, we discussed a issue regarding ordinance 2024-02, where we had a typo that caused some issues with the total dollar for permit fees. It requires a change in the commercial building permits of base fee, valuation fee. It showed 0.05, but should be 0.02. I spoke with Mr. McConville just before the meeting, and I'm going to let him explain in legalese what we need to do tonight. We're going to have to add something to the agenda tonight, and then it will cover anything that's coming in and also allowing us to correct what we may have done previously in that window where the ordinance took effect. So Mr. McConville will do the rest of this. Thank you.
So my understanding is that there's what amounts to an error or a typo with respect to the rate that's established by the ordinance for issuance of construction permits. And that in fact the rate should have been lower than what is currently set forth in the ordinance, and that the error is typographical, not substantive. And so what we have done in the past in this municipality and others when that happens is we pass a subsequent ordinance to correct what we refer to as a scrivener's error and correct the typographical error. And we do it on a retroactive basis to the date at which the ordinance was initially adopted, so that for all time periods of the ordinance is in effect, the correct rate is charged. We refer to that as an ordinance being nunc pro tunc, which means now for then. So you pass it at your next meeting, it will be retroactive to the date of the initial passage. So what I would suggest is that council add to the agenda a motion to direct the law director to draft an ordinance correcting a scrivener's error with respect to ordinance 2024-02. Is there a motion to add that motion to the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
Ms. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Ms. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Okay, so that will be letter D. We'll move the motion to enter executive session to be letter E.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. McConville.
What did you say, Ms. Thomas?
Letter E.
And then motion for executive E.
Is there
Something
the old
added?
one?
I might have-
Yeah,
Yeah, there was an amendment.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, so it'll be E
It's
and
okay.
S.
ABCs.
Okay, are there any other additions or removals from the agenda? Okay, are there any comments from the audience? Okay, hearing none. We're now to reports and communications from the mayor and taking of action thereon. Mayor, do you have any comments?
I do, thank you.
The eclipse is coming, and University Heights will be in the middle of the path of totality. It is a reason to celebrate. Like many cities in Northeast Ohio, University Heights will host a party for the total eclipse. Our event will be on Monday, April 8th from 1:30 to 4:30 p.m. at Walter Stinson Community Park. We're partnering with our friends at Heights Library and Destination Cleveland. Live entertainment will be provided by WJCU DJ Zachary Sanutko, and Hot Dog Coffee will be at the Walt to sell food and drinks. There will be science activities for the kids, thanks to Heights Libraries. Most importantly, we will provide protective solar eclipse glasses for all, so that residents may enjoy the eclipse safely. The glasses we purchased for this event meet international safety standards, whereas ordinary sunglasses cannot be used to look directly at the sun. We want to protect from injury anyone who would seek to view the eclipse as it happens. Only upon reaching totality, the point where the moon completely obscures the sun, can one safely view the eclipse with the naked eye. The eclipse event is free and open to all. We encourage residents to walk to the event if possible. We expect unprecedented traffic in the region around the eclipse. Communications and Civic Engagement Director Mike Cook is unable to attend tonight, but he asked me to let you all know that the new Mosaic magazine is out. Advanced copies are available at City Hall and at businesses across the city, as well as the library. Residents should be receiving their copy in the mail by the end of the week. The eclipse is the cover story among several stories featured. I have a recycling update. Today, I met with other members of the Eastside Consortium at the Solid Waste District's offices. We went over a draft invitation to bid set of documents for pricing for both the landfilling of solid waste and the processing of recyclables. Both contracts are up this year. Based upon the report from SCS Engineering and subsequent discussion, it will be my recommendation to continue participation in the Eastside Consortium with a view towards preparing ourselves to accept a bid on the processing of those recyclables. Alan Pennington, Service Director, and I will be bringing resolutions to Council to the effect of continuing participation with the Eastside Consortium. As a reminder, the other consortium cities are City of Beechwood, City of Cleveland Heights, Village of Highland Hills, City of Independence, City of Lyndhurst, Village of Warren Hills, City of Pepper Heights, City of Shaker Heights, City of Solon, and the Village of Woodbury. The City of University Heights is currently paying $105.92 per ton to process recyclables and $44.21 a ton to landfill solid waste. Cleveland Heights modernized its systems, increasing its recycling by 70%, and under a blended market rate concept is currently paying just $28.42 a ton for its recyclables, which saves money compared to even landfill. I have a University Square update. Today, the court granted an extension on the sale hearing on University Square. It was set for February 27, 2024. The new hearing date is March 12, 2024. It's March 12, 2024. It is anticipated the additional time will be used to finalize terms among the stakeholders, which include Target Macy's, the current ownership of the city, with the sole bidder for the University Square property, which is KL Holdings. It's a new developer we've been working with since 2019. After which time the sale may close and the redevelopment of University Square may proceed. Thank you. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. In terms of reports and communications from City Council, I do not have any. Do any other council members have any reports? Thank you. We're up to reports and communications from the directors of the Department of Finance, Department of Law, Public Safety, Public Service, and any other department heads. Department of Finance.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just to give you a little brief update on revenue and expense for the month of January, our net revenue in the general fund was a little over $1.1 million. Our net expense exceeded that. The total expense in the month of January for the general fund was $1.65 million. The reason for that is that we had a cutoff in the beginning part of December to make sure that everything balanced out by the end of the year. So we had some bills that we had to pay this month that were came due at the end of December. From standpoint of all our funds, similarly, revenue was $1.23 million, expenses were $2.2 million. So, again, we had a number of bills, both in the general fund and in the capital fund, the street construction fund, that we were holding at the end of December. So, from a revenue standpoint, the other important thing is the Cuyahoga County delayed collection of property taxes until mid-February. Normally, we would have got a pretty healthy first advance in January. Because of the extension of that deadline, the revenue that came in February was not that great, but it has picked up in February. We did get a second advance in February as well. So I'll look forward to seeing everybody next week for the budget meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Are there any questions for Mr. Kennedy? Okay, Mr. McConville, Department of Law.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. A couple of items this evening. The first is that I am asking for an executive session tonight to give council updates on the Alexander Schul litigation, the Yabi litigation, and the University Square litigation. Secondly, you have an ordinance in front of you this evening related to an engagement letter for Nicola Goodbranson and Cooper. I am precluded from commenting on that ordinance during its substantive discussion, and I cannot speak to any of the substance of that. However, I have had an opportunity to think about one aspect of Nicola's ongoing representation, and that is that I have a preference that whoever your new law director is, whoever my successor is, be able to comment on the scope of the engagement prior to the adoption of the ordinance. I want that relationship to be collaborative from the start. I want whoever that person is to be able to put their 2 cents in about any of these matters, and would prefer that the ordinance be placed on first reading and then adopted at some point in time, whether it's at the end of March or the beginning of April, when my successor is able to comment on it. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. McConville. Public Safety, Chief Rogers.
Vice Mayor, no report.
Thank you. Fire, Chief Perko.
No report this evening, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Service Department, I don't think Mr. Pennington is here. Do you have any report?
Yeah, no report other than what I already delivered with regard to the site consortium.
Okay. Thank you. Building?
No report.
Thank you. Okay. Housing and Community Development?
I have no report.
Okay. Engineer?
No report.
Communications and Civic Engagement?
Yeah, Mr. Cook is excused this evening, but I gave a report on this during my.
And Economic Development, I don't think Mrs. Drucker's here.
Yeah, she's excused this evening due to family.
Okay. You're now to reading and disposition of ordinance, resolutions, motions, and consideration of agenda items. Agenda item A, ordinance 2024-06, authorizing the mayor to enter into agreement with Wallace Pancher Group for the provision of engineering services as city engineer and declaring an emergency. Mayor, would you like to discuss this?
Sure, I'll be brief. I know that there's a memo in the file. I hope I was sufficiently, I hope I provided information sufficiently in detail with regard to the process that's ensued since the engineer was last before the council. There have been some changes to the proposal by Wallace Pancher, and we also considered at length a proposal by Osborne. As indicated in my memo, Osborne had, when they responded to our RFQ, provided a statement of qualifications together with a proposed scope and proposed retainer, which was a reduced scope from the scope that we had placed in our RFQ. So knowing, after, meeting with Osborne to discuss their scope and discuss possibly bring them on as the engineer, It felt that if we were to have an apples-to-apples comparison between the two firms, I wanted to afford Wallace Pancher an opportunity to re-quote based upon the identical scope as Osborne had envisioned it. And they came back with a much lower number than they had initially proposed when they had originally bid. It's still more than Osborne's, but I think there are a couple of factors that are key here, which are that Wallace Pancher is currently representing 4 other municipalities in the county and doing so well, having spoken with representatives of those cities. Osborne is a very reputable firm with a long history, does not currently, it's just trying to get off the ground its municipal engineering practice. And that's not a bad thing per se, but it is, it just happens to be the case. And when it comes to the actual quotes, while the retainer rates are still higher for Wallace Pancher than they are for Osborne, Wallace Pancher is willing to agree in the long term to fixed amounts for increases over time, tied to our collective bargaining agreements, which are arrangements that they have used in other cities like Fairview Park, Rocky River, and Over Heights. So next year, when our unionized employees get a 4% raise, then there would be a 4% increase next year for Wallace Pancher. That 4% raise is actually this July, but we would not be looking until 2025 for an increase. We also know from our collective bargaining agreements that there's a 2% raise coming in July of 25, so 26 would be a 2% increase. 27, 28 would then be hinged upon whatever the lowest raise is negotiated among the various CBAs. In our city, historically, at least since I've been here, the raises have been the same across all departments, whether it was a 222, a 0, 3.5, 3.5, or what we have now with the 442. Osborne, on the other hand, and I asked specifically if they would agree to a fixed rate of increase, declined to do that, wanted to be able to have the freedom to quote us all new rates every September throughout, the various options. And while I could understand why they might want to do that, especially since they're newer to municipal engineering and these kinds of arrangements, I preferred the certainty of the fixed rates. And I think it helps us in long-range planning and in budgeting to know with reasonable certainty what we can expect, that part of the engineering cost. Which isn't to say that Osborne will immediately raise the rates in excess of what we would be paying Wallace Pancher, but we simply don't know. So these were two of the deciding factors. They're both excellent firms. Either firm would serve this city well, I'm confident of that. But in a close call, I would nevertheless recommend that we bring on Wallace Pancher, Brendan Montague, and I'd ask for your support to authorize me to enter into the contract to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments or discussion? Yeah, Ms. Windsor?
Mayor, in reviewing the ordinance you sent us, I noticed that part of the section that is covered by the monthly retainer, item I and item E are just shown as reserved.
That's correct.
What are they?
Reserve simply means reserved in legal parlance.
Reserved for what?
Meaning that what they had done when they wrote the contract was we had retainer items A through M that we had requested be in the retainer. Okay. So for items E and I, those two items have been pulled out of the retainer and have now been put into the non-retainer items. But to keep the lettering to correspond with our RFQ, we didn't re-letter, we simply put the word reserved there. There have been other times in ordinances and legal documents, and if you would like to elaborate, where when we have a form, we might use the word reserved to mean that there's really nothing there at this point, but to preserve the lettering, we've inserted that word. There may be more artful way of putting it. Luke?
Yeah, I would, I agree wholeheartedly with the description. It's a common method of contract drafting that rather than relettering or renumbering provisions where something has been extracted, you simply put as a placeholder the word reserved, which simply means you're to move to the next letter or number.
Okay, the follow-up question on that then is, if someone wants to put something back in there, that would then come to us for approval? Doesn't it change the ordinance? Okay. Okay, the second question is, I noticed in this contract, as well as in other contracts like Safe Build, we have nothing about failure to do what is in the contract. There are no penalties, there's nothing about if something isn't done, how that would be addressed. I would think that in protecting the city, we would want something like that, or do we just hope for the best?
Well, I have a couple thoughts about that. One is that failure to perform the duties that are listed in the contract would be a breach of contract. And so there's a common law claim for breach of contract. But more significant than that, in my mind, is the termination provision. And the termination provision here is a 90-day termination. In my mind, it's modest enough. You can turn over your engineer middle of the year if you're not getting satisfactory performance. And it's going to take you that long anyway to go through another RFQ process and find someone new, and or to negotiate a contract with a party that you already favor. So I think you do have a hammer in this contract. That hammer is the right to terminate at any time upon notice, and so I would be comfortable recommending the contract on that basis.
However, if it's something, a lot of what I've seen happen are minor things where if we have employees, we have a way to make corrections without having to pick up a huge hammer and like, we're going to terminate this. I just always feel very uncomfortable when there's nothing in there. That's just me.
Well, if I might add, it's a professional services contract. And if we reach a point with any provider of professional services, this one or any other, that they are not doing what they should be doing and we're not able to rectify that situation, I'm not going to want them to continue. So, there's no wanting to compel somebody to complete a professional services contract because you may not like the product you get. The example I often think of is maybe not so much, in this realm, but in the entertainment realm. If you have a contract with a DJ or a singer or a theatrical troupe to put on a performance and you have a dispute, last thing you should want to do is put them up in front of a crowd and have them act out the way they might act out if they're mad. So, this is an instance where because it's a professional services contract, I don't think we treat it the same as we might treat, a stubborn employee that needs disciplinary direction. It's either working or it's not. If they're not going to be professional enough to, do the work in an appropriate way, then they're going to want to just terminate and move on.
Well, I guess I would add to that. If the engineer does something or omits to do something that results in damage to the city, you have claims of common law. So you have breach of contract claims. You have malpractice claims. This is a licensed individual who is obligated to meet professional standards in terms of the job they do for the city. If they fail to do that, and their failure to do that creates some kind of economic harm for the city, you have recourse to the courts and claims. So, as I said, I think there's nothing in here that says, for example, you can only terminate them for cause. You don't have to prove anything. There's no exclusivity provision in here, so they don't have to be the only engineer that you use while they're in your employ. You can decide to go out and hire any other particular engineer for any other particular service or project, as long as you do it within the bounds of our contracting procedures law. So I think there's a lot of different avenues for recourse here. The contract really does not cause me heartburn as your legal advisor.
Thank you, Ms. Weisner. One comment that I just want to make is, this could have been resolved 6 weeks ago. Wallace could have come back. I'm not sure what happened. They obviously came down in their price. I don't think any of us realized that they were not in the scope of the RFP or RFQ. So that definitely bothers me. But besides that, I just wanted to make sure that the residents know that. I will make a motion to authorize the mayor I will make a motion to authorize ordinance 2024-06, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Wallace and Pancher Group. Is there a second? Awesome.
Is that on emergency?
I'm sorry, on emergency.
Yeah, I have a comment. Yeah.
Well, let's do a second first. And then we'll
I'll second.
have comments.
I'll second.
On emergency?
On emergency, please.
Mayor?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, Wallace Pancher follows. The other bidders didn't. So Wallace Pancher was the only firm that actually followed the scope of the retainer that we put into the RFQ process. Osborne did not follow it. What we did was we asked Wallace Pancher if they would bid on a narrower scope as narrowed by Osborne. And then we could have a true apples to apples comparison based upon what Wallace Pancher would have bid if they had taken out those 4 items that Osborne had made hourly. Now you'll recall, I passed out a consulting engineer comparison sheet on January, that was dated January 16th, 2024, and there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different items that in one or more of the municipalities that also represent that aren't in the retainers. We still have a fairly robust scope for our retainer. It's just not as robust as it was. But similarly, in those other cities, they charge $3,800, $5,000, and $3,900. We're coming in at $3,800. So, we're now right in line with those other cities with respect to what we will be paying. A few things will be hourly, a few more things than otherwise would have been had we done their previous retainer. But if we'd gone with Osborne, all of those things would be hourly as well.
Yes, Rob?
Okay, first I'd like to thank Wallace Pancher for adjusting their fee based on this collective engagement that we've had to do what's best for the citizens and residents here. I do want to correct the mayor's comment, though, on following the competitive pricing submission requirement. According to the RFQ under Section 4, competitive pricing and submission of the lowest cost proposal does not guarantee that the firm will be awarded the job. List an hourly rate and cost for all pertinent tasks, including overhead profit for items 1A through M, monthly retainer items. It goes on. The requirement here was to list hourly rates. So to say that a firm didn't follow instructions because they only put their hourly rates, I would say is inaccurate when the submission requirements ask specifically for hourly rates, not lump sum. That being said, it's nice that we do have apples and apples comparison for at least the 2 firms. There was a question earlier about items E, items I. You have to refer to the old contract, letter E. Just to put this out there, the city engineer shall review plans for stormwater compliance. So that particular item is now going to be hourly. Osborne had submitted an hourly proposal for item E, so this under Wallace Pancher would be hourly. And then item I, that says reserve, the original notation here was the city engineer will review the design and observe the construction of public improvements performed by the city or by entities other than the city when requested by the mayor. So now that it is hourly, I do want to caution though that when the city engineer is engaged in design work, they should not be reviewing their design. We would need somebody to review their design. So I would just, this is by request of the mayor, so when projects are in design, the mayor has the opportunity to reach out for a third-party review of the design work. The other thing was, the fee. I'm fine with the fee. I want to caution when we say we're going to match the union rates. Union employees pay dues and have to fight for their union compensation. So I just want to be really careful when we say it. We're just going to match the fees. That's great that we're going to do that, but these union negotiations hold a special place. So, and unions do set wages for non-union employees. I just want to be careful when we talk about that. And then the last thing is, I don't want to get into the business of consultants writing up the contracts. You mentioned that Wallace Pancher wrote this contract. They're working for us. I feel that we should be writing up the contract. There will be contracts in the future for design work, for other services outside of the scope here. May it be hourly or lump sum, whatever they propose. I just don't want to get into the business that the consultant does the contract writing, because they're going to do what's in the best interest of themselves. We're the entity that needs to do what's in the best interest of the taxpayer. So I want us to have the authoring of those contracts.
Thank you, Mr. Rock. Does anyone else have any other comments?
I do have one thing I want to clarify, just so that it's clear to members of council. The increase in the engineer's fees from year to year, tracking the labor union raises is a contractual term. So it's automatic, but qualified by the fact that you have 4 separate renewal options. So your contract is really year to year. If you decide that you're no longer willing to pay the raise, you can elect not to renew the contract, but otherwise there would be a basis for arguing about what the raise would be year to year.
If I may, it's also a matter of framing, and one of those things is this: McKay Engineering, which preceded Wallace Pancher in the cities on the west side, had a value with regard to respect for union work, and extended like this. They never wanted to take a raise if the union employees didn't get a raise. So they would go zero if they had to go zero for some reason. They thought it was unseemly if they would have an adjustment up in their professional services if the union employees in the city didn't get a raise. So the way that they then squared that away was tying their increase to what, if any, raises the union employees got. I understand Mr. Rock's point, but I tend to see it the other way with respect to this renderer of professional services is never going to get an increase higher than what our union workers. And if our union workers get no raise for some reason, like the year we had 0 in 2020, then they get 0.
Just put a clarification that but the inverse could be true, where union employees compensation scales increase, but we don't necessarily have to increase the engineer because it's a year-by-year contract. Is that correct?
Right. I mean, you can always negotiate with them and know that if they don't agree to the economic terms that you're willing to agree to, you won't exercise your option.
And not that
then you would go out for RFQ.
Sure. Just in extenuating circumstances like COVID, where we had to cut costs where we could. If the union had already had these in place, they would be getting their increase.
Right. I don't mean to suggest that you can't negotiate with them. Of course you can, and you have options to renew. But the contract does have as a term that raises year over year track the union. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew that.
Thank you, Mr. Rock. So there is a motion on the floor. We have a roll call suspension of the rules, Ms. Thomas.
Mrs. Sachs?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
And on the main motion?
Mrs. Sachs?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Okay, the ordinance passes. Agenda item B, ordinance 2024-05, authorizing the mayor to enter into an engagement letter agreement with Nicola Branson and Cooper LLC for ongoing legal services, and we are going to put this on first reading. We discussed, and I'm going to bring this out into the sunshine, an executive session, and I also asked Mr. McConville to create an engagement letter. There are for his firm in light of his resignation, because there are some very specific legal or actual very specific litigation that is occurring that he has historical knowledge of and a deep understanding, where our new law director does not and will not. So we wanted to retain him for those ongoing issues. Based on his discussion in his law director report, we will have this on first reading, and when we hire the new law director, we'll discuss it between the two of them and in open session, and go from there. Is everybody in agreement with that? Okay. If there are no further questions, we will go on to letter item C. Motion to authorize and accept the bid proposal for ease of work for the fire department wellness education curriculum and various other health services ending December 31st, 2024, in an amount not to exceed $99,750 and funded by the remaining ARPA grant. Chief Burko.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Good evening. This request is based off the request I brought forward in the January meeting, seeking bids to go out for this program. The last safety committee meeting, we provided an update. At that time, we only had one bid, and at the conclusion of the bidding process, it remained that we only had this one single bid. This company, Ease at Work, happens to be our employee assistance plan provider with the city for a few years now. We do have a good rapport with them. They are used to working with public safety and providing the scope of services here to meet the grant requirements.
Thank you, Chief Burko. And just remind us, you did not receive the money yet. You pay out and then you get reimbursed?
That's correct.
And you will produce receipts for the $99,750, not the full $100,000.
Correct.
Okay.
There's no matching funds for the grant.
Are there any other questions, Ms. Weiser?
I gotta have something. Since we only got one quote, do you have any idea, is this matched in other departments, or is this something that a lot of departments currently don't have?
A lot of departments don't have it. We've been following all along. I've referenced the International Association of Firefighters, International Association of Fire Chiefs Wellness Fitness Initiative. That manual outlines like 5 main categories, one of them being medical examinations, which we put out an RFQ for and are in the process of conducting right now. We've had ongoing fitness assessments in collaboration with John Carroll for about 6 years now. We've been doing a lot of the data collection, but one of the key components that we've been missing was behavioral health. So during the pandemic, with Ease at Work, that is part of this wellness initiative in the IAFF manual. And the second component is peer support training. We currently have 1 member that just finished and 2 members that are going to enroll in this peer support training, and that is funded by this grant initiative as well. And then the third component is seeking professional behavioral support through clinician services like this one. To answer your question a little more directly, because of the ARPA funding and what the governor did for the first responder grant here, they're recognizing that public safety needs this assistance and we need this education. We all know that, especially professions that are predominantly male, there's a stigma about trying to seek help and assistance for ourselves, and that's especially true of those in public safety that are used to always being on the giving end and not the receiving end. And as behavioral health issues rise, suicide rates increase in public safety, The state has been taking a close look at all the data. They've been running surveys and collecting stats, and I would believe that that is why they're issuing out this kind of money to a lot of public safety departments in the state. So we did look and cross-reference with other departments, not only throughout the state, but in Northeast Ohio, and we drafted our RFQ to make sure that our services were in alignment.
Thank you, Chief. I think on a personal level that this is the kind of program that while it's new and it may seem strange, it probably is one of the best programs for first responders, because you guys see things we never see. And I think it's really good. So, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Is there any motion?
So moved.
Second.
This time, so we call the roll.
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Letter D is the motion to approve the contract for municipal engineering services. So
Yeah, I suggest that's moved, because A has been taken
I think A really should have been the appointment, correct?
Well, it's, I mean, you're appointing by virtue of authorizing the contract. So I believe, and Mayor, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that this item was essentially placed on the agenda as a placeholder in the event that council rejected item A.
It was initially a placeholder for item A, and then we kept it on as D. Perhaps if A had not worked out, we could have explored our options. But if that, A was approved, and I believe the ordinance in A also serves as confirmation of the appointment.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So I'm satisfied that the ordinance has been met. If you are, I am. Okay. Well done.
Do we need to make a motion to remove item D? Okay. So is there a motion to remove item D from the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second that. Ms. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
So now the new letter D, it's the motion to direct the law director to,
It would be a motion to direct the law director to draft an ordinance to correct a scrivener's error in ordinance 2024-02.
I so move.
I'll second. So it really is me.
Ms. Thomas, will you
Do we have to do that on emergency?
No, it's a motion. I'll have it on the agenda for you at the next meeting. That will be an emergency ordinance, and it will be drafted in a way, as I indicated before, but just for purposes of our record, it will be drafted so that it's retroactive to the date of initial enactment.
Thank you.
Ms. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Okay, we will now have agenda item F. We are going to have a motion to enter executive session after we have the reports from standing committees for the purpose of discussing legal proceedings. Real estate matters or just legal proceedings?
Legal proceedings in real estate matters, and just again for the record, it's for Yabi, Alexander Schul, and University Square.
And you don't feel there'll be any business afterwards?
I would defer to the mayor on that.
There might be, it depends on.
So that's for the audience to determine if they want to stay or
You
not.
may want to stick around if you want to hear a motion.
Okay. So is there a motion to enter executive session?
So moved. Second.
Ms. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Thank you. Reports of standing committees and taking of action thereon. Ms. Weiser, Building and Housing?
We did the permit fee change discussion. We also talked about the Safebuilt contract, and perhaps the mayor might be able to answer a question. You're out of the room. Did Safebuilt send a complete contract getting rid of those addendums? Have we gotten that yet?
On I'm not aware of that.
Okay, because Mr. Cheatham is going to follow up on that. We are looking at flowcharts for housing. We'd like to thank Mr. Engelbrecht, who has spent some time, and also Councilman Cooney, working together. We're trying to get that sorted out, so there'll be not only flowcharts for residents, because there is an issue when people come in, what do I need, how do I go through this process, and we're trying to make that as clear as possible for homeowners and also contractors. That's continuing. We continue discussion of the preparation of the new letter for exterior inspections, and also address some realtor concerns that had come up on point of sale, and seem to find a way that we can begin to resolve that. And I'll send a letter or email to Mr. McConville. We did talk briefly about some rental issues. That's going to take a little bit of research to get into what's going on with in other cities, what kinds of ordinances they have, how they're dealing now with the proliferation of out-of-state companies coming in, buying houses, using them as rentals, but not pulling rental permits. So, we sort of buying by accident rentals, and it gives the city less control over those units. And that's about where we got to tonight. And we get to go back and try to get these things finished out next month.
Thank you, Ms. Weiser. Community outreach, Mr. King is not here. He did not submit a report. Economic development, Mr. Ross?
No report.
Thank you. Finance, there is a finance committee meeting next week. We will be discussing the draft budget. There will be 1 to 2 meetings before the budget is proposed, and referred to the City Council. It has to be passed by March 31st. Recreation, Mr. Cooney?
No report, Ms. Mayor.
Thank you. Safety, Ms. Marshall. The one thing that she asked me to report is that we are still having some parking issues, and she has discussed this with Chief Rogers on Belvoir, particularly in Washington, and she will be following up. Service and utilities, Ms. Sachs?
Thank you. The next Service and Utilities Committee meeting will be March 6th at 6 p.m. We will continue our discussion and hopefully finalize about the loose recycling collection. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Committee of the Whole. There is also a Committee of the Whole meeting next week to interview potential law directors. And there is also a poll out for a council retreat that will be coming up within the next month or so. So we are now going to go into executive session.
This is the second place we've been to since Relatively. Yes. Yes. You want to give me your email? Yes. No.
Make sure it's not all of this.
Well, they have to reserve that, right, if they go in.
Yeah.
Great.
So, yeah, so there was, Mardi Gras, dancing.
The
phone plan was overlaid
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
So, well, it's not.
Think about it. All right, it's true. And then we'll find it, yeah.
But,
It happens.
yeah.
It happens. We will be conscientious, or I will be conscientious. I thought the Alexander Scholl litigation was done. That was a surprise.
To you.
I haven't been as diligent as at checking dockets since I've done gone to the court's website that often anymore.
Sorry, I'm catching up with my spouse.
Go ahead, I'm gonna look this up.
I just found out that my 5-year-old had a injury with backpack and
Aww.
I found a sad message about it.
Aww.
So I left my husband desperately trying to make it like an about me picture with my 5-year-old.
That sounds like fun.
So, and
Kinda.
he's reporting back.
Let's see. Updated. Oh, nice.
And so I wonder whether it's a phone that I got from my phone.
Yeah. This is dismissed with prejudice.
Okay, he said, give Albert my love.
Yes, God, you don't do executive session. That was she was on Michelle. She got wrong type of business. And her husband, Alfred, used to be on. They were both crossing guards. Oh my God. Yes, I do. Yeah. I tell you very well, I I was supposed to be last night, and I didn't go there. I didn't go there, I was sleeping on the bus, I finished until like 3:30 in the morning. That whole verbatim was that was it. So that's. It's over with. Okay, take it easy, we'll be in touch, okay? Okay, bye-bye.
When we need you. When? Is there a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second.
It's time, so we call the roll.
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Okay, I'd like to add an agenda item, building agenda item G. Mr. McConville, can you please state the agenda item?
Yes, the agenda item would be a motion to authorize the expenditure of $1,050,000 for purposes of acquisition of the Yabi real estate.
I will make a motion
So this would be the motion to add that to the agenda.
on emergency. Right?
It's just a motion.
Just a motion.
I'll second.
Add it. I made a motion and Mr. Rock seconded.
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
So now you would be considering whether to make a motion to authorize the expenditure of $1,050,000 for acquisition of the Yabi property. Is there a motion?
And I will make that motion.
Second.
For purposes of the record and just to make sure everyone's on the same page and council is aware, the parties to the litigation would proceed to negotiate a purchase agreement that would contain details about the acquisition of title to the property along with payment for same and dismissal of the litigation. And that purchase agreement would be placed in front of council by ordinance. And we hope to have that to you perhaps as soon as the next meeting.
It's time, so we call the roll.
Ms. Sacks?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Seconded.
Hesitating here.
It's time, so we call the roll.
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.